Week 5 of the NFL season is upon us, and to help me break down the Sunday main slate, those games in the 1 and 4 o'clock window, I got here Frank Ammirante. Find him over on X at F Ammirante TFJ, and that's AMMIRANTE. You can see it right over there in the name handle there. So, Frank, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining. And let me ask you here, this 1 and 4 o'clock window got a lot of interesting games with some high game totals. And there are a couple games, even with some lower totals, that I'm a little interested in. So kind of looking at the slate just at a high level, what are your kind of thoughts, certain players you kind of have picked out? Just give me the kind of the high level overview.
First of all, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk this slate with you. In terms of who I like, obviously I know everyone's looking at it, but that Cowboys and Jets game, 47.5-point total. Cowboys pass defense been a joke. You know, with Braylon Allen out, Breece Hall kind of, you feel like a little more confident around the goal line. So you got to love Breece Hall this week. Even though the Cowboys run D has actually been okay despite that Josh Jacobs game. Prior to that, it was okay. But that could be just a high-scoring game, and Breece Hall finds the end zone, catches a few passes. You could really go with a whole Fields, Hall, and Wilson stack. Bring it back with Javonte or Pickens. Also liking the Chargers passing game to get back on track. I'm a Commanders fan. The pass defense has not been good. We saw Michael Penix and company get right last week in the Falcons win. I think we could see something similar. Big game from Herbert. Obviously, like Hampton, Quentin Johnston's been shocking the world, continues to roll. If you want to be contrarian, maybe Ladd McConkey finally gets going. But yeah, I like the Chargers to get going there. Also, like Jahmyr Gibbs could have one of his super nuclear games here against the Bengals. 10.5-point favorites. The Lions are. Great game script. Bengals defense isn't good. So yeah, like you said, lots of interesting matchups here. Good spots to target.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm partial to the Texans. So the Texans-Ravens game, a.k.a. Nico Collins, is the main one that I want there. And I'm glad you said the Lions-Bengals. I know we're going to spin a lineup here and mainly DFS-focused here for the sake of this, but I know you like to look at player props and a little sports wagering as well. I see it over on your X feed over there. Am I foolish for thinking that 10.5 line in that Detroit-Cincinnati game, something seems off? Like, to me, I don't know how Detroit doesn't win by 20 plus in this game.
Well, for one, like road favorites to be double digit on the point spread, it's like, you know, a little bit more rare unless it's like one of those just disaster teams. I know the Bengals have been horrible, and you're right. Like the Lions could definitely cover this 10.5. I think that's just really what it is, just hesitancy to put them too favored on the road. I mean, we even saw like with Packers on the road against the Browns. You know, funky things happen. Then again, though, like I thought the Bengals were going to put more of a competitive effort against the Broncos. That was totally wrong. So it could certainly turn into a blowout once again. So I get your claim there for sure.
You just kind of put the knife in and twisted it a little bit. You said Ladd McConkey earlier, who's a bust on many of my fantasy teams. You said the Packers-Browns knocked me out of a survivor pool or two. So I appreciate that. Give me all the Amon-Ra in that matchup, though. That's the main thing I'm hoping for. And you mentioned him earlier. You get him here right there, Breece Hall against a soft Dallas defense. I know he's only the projected 10th ranked running back, but based on what you said and kind of my thoughts as well, I don't see a world where he's outside the top 10 at the position this week.
Yeah, I love him. We got to lock in Breece Hall there. Just happy to get him on the first spin. And like I said, like Braylon Allen, it's not like he's anything great, but his absence really makes you feel more comfortable that Breece Hall will dominate touches in the red zone. Like Isaiah Davis will still get his work, but you know, I don't think to the same degree that Braylon Allen was getting on that like first couple drives. So big game probably coming for Breece Hall.
And Dallas, 6th most fantasy points allowed there. So I love locking in Breece Hall. We do have A.J. Brown there. I think the name's been a little bigger than the performance there. Likely to get Pat Surtain. We're at the point of the season where he's already tweeting out cryptic lyrics about being upset about things. So it's our first spin. He's the 15th ranked player. I'll be curious your thoughts. I know my stance on A.J. Brown here, but what do you make of A.J. Brown here against Denver?
Yeah, so season long, obviously you got to be patient. You're not going to sell low. It is what it is. He's been terrible, but you just got to ride it out and hope for the best. Bet on the track record. But in terms of like building a DFS lineup and with this type of style, even, yeah, I don't want any part of AJ Brown against the Broncos. I mean, I have him in season long. Like I said, I'm still going to start him, But DFS, you're trying to build the highest scoring lineup you can, and not locking in Brown there.
Okay, I'm good. I didn't want to have to make an argument with a wide receiver on a team who had 0 passing yards in the second half. So glad we're in agreement there. There's 2 other names here. I'm curious your thoughts. So I'll kind of lump them together. You do get Alvin Kamara against a Giants team, allowing the 5th most running backs or fantasy points to running backs on the season. And then you got Michael Pittman down there against Vegas, who's allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers. Pittman's down in the flex, which is interesting because you can get kickers down there. There's a little bit more volatility that we can get there. But it's our first spin. We don't have to use all of the locks right away, but either Alvin Kamara or Michael Pittman Jr. worth a lock in your mind here on our first spin.
I was gonna maybe pass, but you raised a really good point about the strategy with this format. Like, I don't want to be stuck with a kicker at flex, to be honest. And it's full PPR. Michael Pittman looks healthy. You mentioned the Raiders' struggles against receivers in terms of fantasy points allowed. I think I'm gonna lock in Michael Pittman. Colts at home, 6-point favorites, good implied total. Shane Steichen has the offense humming. Like, what a story there. Yeah, give me Michael Pittman. I'll lock him in. But Kamara, you do say, like, I agree. Like, the Giants' run defense hasn't been good. But, given that I already have one of my running back spots filled with Breece Hall, I want to kind of spin and see what else I could get, because I only got to fill in one more running back, so I don't want to lock myself in after only one spin. What if, I'm trying to Gibbs comes up, Jahmyr Gibbs. So yeah, I'm gonna pass on Kamara, but yes, let's lock in Pittman.
Good. We'll lock in Pittman. We'll lock in Breece Hall. We'll give the board another spin there. We actually get the tight end on the other side of that game up there in the upper right. We do get Brock Bowers. What do you make of him going up against the Colts? It is one of the higher game totals on the board. It's just, this isn't 2024 Brock Bowers. This is 2025. Usage is down. At least it seems a little bit, and Gino's got some questions around him. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an elite player at the position of need there for us.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense because, you have the correlation with Pittman if it turns into a shootout with passing game. But Bowers, he still has that brace. And like you said, the usage hasn't been there. Bowers clearly isn't 100%. I'm kind of like on the fence here because, like, he's not fully healthy, but it goes nice with the lineup because I have Pittman already. You know what? Screw it. We're locking in Bowers because really the only one else that I totally want to lock in here at tight end to get that big name is Trey McBride. And obviously, the odds are against you that you're going to land him on a spin. Like, it's tough. And I don't really want to get Tyler Warren as well with Pittman because I don't want both Colts pass catchers. So to build this sort of mini stack within a potential high-scoring Colts-Raiders game, yeah, let's go Bowers.
I like that. And Bowers did have a 28.6% target share last week, his highest thus far in the season. So I like that. We do have Ken Walker there. We have Zay Flowers, which we're presuming is going to be with Cooper Rush and not Lamar Jackson against Houston. And then we have the other receiver for a team that, again, had 0 passing yards in the second half last week. I'm good with throwing everybody else back in. Any objections to that?
Agree 100%. Walker, Charbonnet's there. Bucks run defense is tough. Flowers is Cooper Rush, a quarterback. Devontae Smith in a run-heavy offense, tough opposing defense. Yeah, I'm out.
Easy enough. We'll spin it again here. So now we get the question. Yeah, see, this is where it gets fun because in typical DFS, you talk about stack. I love doing at least a quarterback receiver stack, but we would now have Daniel Jones with Michael Pittman. You got Brock Bowers on the other side. There's a path here where, sure, there might be 5 other quarterbacks with a higher projection than Daniel Jones. But if we're saying, hey, Vegas and Colts is going to see some points scored, we already got Michael Pittman. If Michael Pittman's going to do anything, it's on the back of the right arm of Daniel Jones. And also, this guy is a vulture. He will take a quarterback sneak at the 1 or 2 yard line and get himself a rushing touchdown, as we've seen. I don't love that the fantasy points is trending down there per start, but I trust Shane Steichen. As much as it pains me to say as a Texans fan, I trust Shane Steichen. So do you think we lock in Daniel Jones to kind of have our game stack here with that Colts-Raiders matchup?
Yeah, because, when you're playing this game, spinning these players, you may get caught in a spot where you just want to, pick your favorites. But also you want to strategize and build your lineup accordingly. And this makes way too much sense not to do. Like you said, he's correlated with Pittman. the more popular choice will be Jonathan Taylor, so we get some leverage off that with Jones and Pittman. Like if they air it out, throw a touchdown instead of running in, or like you said, Jones runs it in. Also, like Genty coming off that big game, we can pass on him and look for leverage with Bowers, who would be a bit contrarian because Bowers hasn't really gotten it done yet, and people, are hesitant. So I'm gonna lock in Daniel Jones there. I'm gonna pass on Genty, even though I like him, just to do that kind of leverage spot. But I want to say about those two receivers because this looks like a puzzle piece fitting together. It's just perfect because we got, on the one hand, we got Wan'Dale Robinson, Malik Neighbors, sadly out for the season. Full PPR format, plays right into Wan'Dale's strengths, and now he's like the de facto number one receiver on the team. We've seen what Wan'Dale could do this year. Yeah, I'm locking in Wan'Dale Robinson, and I'm going to lock in Chris Olave. Like, he hasn't had a big fantasy performance yet, but in this full PPR format, sets up perfectly. He's had a terrific target share, getting a lot of volume. Aside from that Bills game, really, it was. But prior to that Bills game, I think his target share was like 40%, Olave. So given that it pairs with Wan'Dale nicely, it's an indoor game environment. Yeah, let's lock him in. Nick Chubb, no way. And that's it out of this group.
I'm glad you pointed out a lot. I was really hoping I wasn't going to have to do like a nice, gentle, polite nudge to Chris Olave. I'm glad we're on the same page there. Wide receivers, Giants only the Cowboys have allowed more fantasy points per game to wide receivers this year than the Giants. And I wrote about it over at Fantasy Alarm this week in the DFS wide receiver coach. And that article's behind a paywall, but I'm going to read this just directly what I wrote about Chris Olave. I said, not only has he recorded 20% plus target share in every game this season, but where do I start? Is it the fact that the Giants have allowed the second most fantasy points per game to wideouts? Is it the fact that he plays on the perimeter and the Giants rank in the bottom 5 in the NFL in yards allowed and fantasy points to the perimeter? And when he goes in the slot, Andrew Phillips, nightmare in slot coverage. Again, shout out to Fantasy Points Data Suite for all those numbers. But I love Chris Olave. I'm glad I didn't have to say anything there. And it's something too, if everyone's going to keep spinning and looking for the number 1, number 2, number 3 projected receiver, we could gain some leverage here with these two. And it's in that same game. And whoever would have thought about a month ago that come week 5 of the season, we'd be looking at a Jackson Dart and Spencer Rattler game and hoping for some production from wide receivers. Everything sounds good until they start playing games, Frank. Everything sounds good until the games start, but we'll throw the other two back. So now, of course, we are out of locks. So if we get somebody good, we would need to unlock somebody, but that might be a little tough because we like a lot of these guys. But Jake Elliott in the flex and J.K. Dobbins, that's not the last dynamic duo that we need here.
Wait, so sorry. So we got to, if the spins run out, wait, what do you mean? Sorry, just to clarify. Okay, because now we're kind of screwed. Maybe keeping Genty would have been the move.
Well, we couldn't. Then we wouldn't have been able to keep Olave or Wan'Dale. So we are out of locks. So at this point now, we are spinning for these two spots. So if we were to get,
it would reset. Oh, got you.
Correct. Okay. So if we were to get Jahmyr Gibbs, we would need to unlock somebody to make sure we got Gibbs. Or if we get Gibbs and Nico Collins, we're done. That's it. We're done. We're going to lock that lineup in. But we don't need
pairing.
We don't need Woody Marks backup, let alone a second pass catcher for the Saints. That's not going to do it. Now we can get a little greedy. That's a pretty, oh my gosh. Okay, we're Colts and Raiders fans at this point because we're down to 3 spins. That's a pretty good combination. You've actually been able to run it a little bit on Denver this season, and that's all that Kevin Patullo wants to do. So it's going to be set up perfectly for him. We're down to 3 spins. We don't have any locks left. Saquon Barkley and Jacoby Myers isn't a bad duo there for our last 2 spots.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the strategy with the spins, you've seen on the screen what we've ended up with in previous spins, like Chubb and Juwan Johnson,
Jake Elliott.
It'd be quite risky for me to pass this up, even though it's not like I wanted both Raiders pass catchers without the QB, but we can't be too picky here. And you're absolutely right. Even with Barkley not showing as much explosiveness this year, but obviously the touchdown upside is there. And like you said, the Broncos run defense has been as good. Let's lock them in, Myers and Barkley.
We'll lock that in, complete the lineup there. Now, of course, we get to the pick'em entry. So let's do this. Take a look here. What of the players on the board here are you most confident in exceeding their projected fantasy point total as shown on the screen?
Okay, let's start with Brees Hall, 15.4. Well, we'll go
Okay.
over full PPR format. We know his receiving role. Like I said, you're more confident about Brees Hall's red zone role this week. I think you could go over. That's my most confident. I got to pick two more.
Pick one more to go more over its total. I'll pick two as well, and we'll try to 10x with a 4 pick entry.
Okay. So I'm torn here a little bit between Olave and Wandale, but because, one for one as players, I prefer Olave. You outlined how good the matchup is. So even though Olave, you need almost 2 more points to go over this, I'm going to say Chris Olave. Love the target share, love the matchup, love that he's at home.
Well, I'm glad you didn't have to go too much because I was going Pittman and Olave, or Pittman and Robinson, Olave. Those were the three that I was honed in on. I knew you were going to take Brees Hall. I wasn't going to take him from you, but I was between those two and them. So we'll put 100 tokens on this. 4 players get them all right. We can 10x turn 100 tokens there into 1,000. We'll confirm that, see how we do there. And overall, I like this lineup. And one of the things that I always try to look for in this is, sure, we can have the 8 highest scoring players. That's fine. But this way, there's at least a path where, 1, we gain a little leverage on the field, and 2, we have a game. There is a pathway for this lineup to make sense, and it's points scored in that Indy Vegas game, and maybe it's not Genty and Jonathan Taylor. It's a lot through the passing game. We gain that leverage, and we have the game script. So overall, I like this lineup. Sure. Does it not have Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown? Sure. It might not have the star power, but there's correlation and there's leverage on the field that could push us up that leaderboard. Do you have any kind of final thoughts on the lineup here other than anything that I kind of opined there?
Yeah, I totally agree because you need to think of the game theory here. It's like you're trying to beat lots of other, competitors. So you want to be contrarian in certain regards. And like you said, with focusing on just the passing game and that potential shootout with the Raiders and Colts, and then really going at a game that not a lot are maybe people are going to pass on in that Giants and Saints game, and getting 2 full PPR merchants, as they say on Olave and Wandale. Love the target share. And yeah, I like this lineup.
Yep, I like it as well. So we'll go to battle with that lineup. And of course, we got that 4-pick entry in there as well. But that'll do it here. So, Frank, thank you for joining. Why don't you let everyone know they can find you over on X and any sites that you're doing content for this year?
Yeah, you could find me on X, Ammirante, TFJ. My content's at several sites, Rotoballer, Fantasy Pros. If you're into betting, it's on a few sites there in my bio, Best Odds. I have a Substack where I post rankings for fantasy football for free. And yeah, any questions, you could hit me up on Twitter. I'll answer them. It was a pleasure. This is a cool game. I love it.
Yep. Thanks for joining. Make sure you give him a follow on X. I've been following you for a long time, Frank. Love the insights that you post, and then bets, player props, and then I know this is football, but if I'm not mistaken, you're a Blue Jays fan, right?
Yes.
All right. Best of luck in the divisional series.
Yes.
I don't know who you're pulling for them to play, but best of luck in the divisional series. Once again, F Ammirante TFJ over on X. You can find me on X at Colby R. Conway. And if you want to spin to win and experience the newest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports this football season, head over to the Google Play or the Apple App Store. Download the FantasySpin app, and we will see you on the leaderboard. What's up, y'all? Hope you enjoyed the content. For the avoidance of doubt, please note that I, Colby Conway, am a DFS player entering these contests under the username Colby Conway. The strategies and recommendations in this video do not necessarily reflect the views of Fantasy Spin. Please play responsibly and visit fantasyspin.com/responsible gaming to take advantage of Fantasy Spin's responsible gaming resources.